closely, the cyber footprint. He said they can't change that. This is government.
It was preserved.
It was preserved. They're all preserved 100%. So anyone out there, if you're media out there and you've seen this, you can focus on anything you want, but the one thing you can't say is this election, that this cyber attack, you have to say 100% now, it has been proven. Mm-hmm. It has been proven, and it has been validated by a cyber expert that the government uses, and so you have 100% evidence on that.
Mm-hmm. His mic is right here. Are we on? Yep. Where's his box?
Yeah.
It's right here. You just have your box right here, just so it gets a good signal. So yeah, so you need to get a good signal to the wireless. But yeah, you're good.
Okay.
Make sure it's
Did
tight
they
right
get all
here.
that?
No, they got all that.
Well, what are we on pause here?
No, we're good. We're good. Come just double check it off to the side here real quick while we keep talking. Come over here to the side. Let him just double check it. Come on, Mike. Just double check that real quick. All right, so we're going to replay that tonight at 7 o'clock Central Time. Everybody needs to go out there, tweet it, Facebook it, email it, text it, call people. Frankspeech.com. Frankspeech.com. This is the only place you can watch it, folks, until we decide to release it to the general public. Right now, it's all frankspeech.com. Tonight, 7 p.m. Central Time. This is 2 hours and 5 minutes. I think we're going to have it playing in other places later this weekend. But right now, tonight, this is it. 7 p.m. Central Time. Tell your family and your friends. Again, our traffic really spiked this morning. So we had big numbers this morning already, equal to what we were doing yesterday. Now, Mike, we got some big news.
You know what? I think we're gonna run. We're gonna do an extra airing. Why don't we do an extra? We'll run it. I think this is so important to the world. I'm telling people that you should run it before then. People that missed it, they can.
Okay, but I already told the audience we're going to add a few graphics where they can see things cleaner, crisper. The graphics we talked about.
Can you run it by 4 o'clock?
By 4 o'clock, we can do that.
All right, we're going to run it at 4 o'clock Central Time, and then we'll run it again tonight. 4 o'clock Central Time. We're going to run this. I'm just kidding. It's blowing up my phone. They want to see it again.
They want to see it again.
See it again.
All right, so we're changing that to 4 p.m. Central Time, and then we'll let you know what time later tonight.
That's correct.
Or do you want to do 4 and 7?
No, we'll do 4 o'clock, and we'll do 4 o'clock and let's see. Why don't we do 4 o'clock and 8 o'clock Central Time?
All right, so 4 o'clock Central is the second airing of Absolute Interference. 4 p.m. Central Time. We'll go for 2 hours and 5 minutes of that. Then we're going to air it again at 8 p.m. Central Time. So that'll take us from 8 to 10, and then we'll have some chatter and talk with experts and guests at the desk after that. So again, alert everyone you know. Tweet it, Facebook it, email it. 4 and 8.
Right. I want to go through what you all just seen, though. I want all the media to get it. I want everyone to understand that these prints, what you've seen at the end there, and we're going to make that as a standalone. This is in any court, anywhere, okay? This is what the government would bring in these guys to validate these cyber prints, these cyber footprints that you can't change. You can't change this. We have them from the election. We have all of them. You've seen that I call it that gibberish, that first thing that we put up where you can't read it, where we can't read it, but these guys that own that went to school that did this, that are cyber experts.
All those certificates he had.
Yeah, all those certificates. Those kind of guys, that's why they're the best. They're the best in the world. They can read this, and they take it, their computers read it, and converted it into those 19 attacks. Remember, that was just 19. There's millions of lines of that data come from the election night, okay? Millions of lines. And then it's converted to those 19 attacks you see. And those 19, as you read them across, this cyber expert that works for the government, he went across and he went across every part. I told him, I said, I want you to do everything you can do and more that you would do. And then what they do when they find this stuff, this is a full report. This is everything they got. So when he goes into court, we get to the Supreme Court. When we get there, all of these people like him, and I have more too. There's more experts that I use. We just didn't have one. I have experts validate experts too. Mm-hmm. I want everybody to know that there's not just this guy. I want this to be, because you know what? This is the most important thing probably to our country that I can think of, because this is it. I want every single person, whether you're a Democrat, Republican, no matter who you are, you need to be able to see that and believe it. Well, how do you believe it? When you get, I want validation, validation. When someone says, well, there's not, has been debunked. Now, just remember, all you media out there, this can't be debunked because it's new. No one has ever seen it before. That stuff we showed you there from the spyware, that's the first time anyone has seen that other than the people. I had seen it quite a while ago. I had seen it, but I wanted to make sure that all the cyber experts have seen it. It never broke. They call it chain of custody. These things it's secure. You can't touch them. You can't do anything. You can't go back and change them. You know, I mean, you heard that?
Yeah, it's preserved. He says it's preserved.
Absolutely preserved. So we have the proof. This is what I've had. Why you say, well, Mike Lindell's out there going and saying all this. I already had this stuff, so I knew. Once I revealed it to everybody, when we put out absolute proof, I thought, well, wow, something should be done right now. It should be done 100% right now. Get done. But you know what? Everybody needed, I guess, more. Why not get more validation? Why not get the cyber guys that do this, that are trained to do this, trained to validate? You know, and the lawyers that I have involved in this, the lawyers demanded this too. They said, you know, this stuff is it's the most serious thing ever you can think of for our country. And so we went, let's go get this validated by, a cyber expert. Let's get another cyber expert. It's just like when I got Frank here. What I did with Frank here is I made it so that you could, when we talk about attacks and stuff, or things trying to break down our servers or whatever, I said, can I get 3 more of them? Can I get 4 of them? You know, would that help? And they go, yeah, that would help. Well, then give me 6 of them and 4 of them. You know, we got validation. So what you've seen here, there's at least 2 more independent experts. I'm going to say at least 2 more, because we also have whistleblowers and stuff.
And we had one in the film.
Yeah,
we should
but
talk
I mean,
with him.
there's some that aren't in the film, and these guys, they're going to all be coming forward this afternoon. We're going to reveal a little of that when we go through the timeline of the machines and how they're related, how Smartmatic started this all in Venezuela. This is what we're going to do today. We're going to just go all in and show everything we can today, and we're going to keep doing this day after day. Tomorrow we're going to have a guilty tracker.
Yep.
We're going to have this tracker up, and with this tracker, you will be able to come in and you'll be able to actually vote if you think there's enough evidence that you're guilty. So, Brandon, I'm going to check something here.
Okay, and let me just say this, Mike. I don't know if you want to make this announcement, but we got our IT guy at Johnston House, RJ, told us and gave us stats and screenshots. They can't be refuted. We got the stats, we got the screenshots, and in a little over 24 hours, are you ready for me to announce this? What happened in a little over 24 hours? 1 billion page views.
1 billion page views. That's what I was checking. I had heard that. What that means is that it can be the same person viewing multiple pages.
But that's a ton.
But realize, you know, we wanted everybody focused yesterday on the live stream.
Right.
So that's a huge number, because yesterday there was basically only 1 page.
Exactly. It wasn't like they could go 10 pages deep.
Right. 1 billion, over a billion, over a billion.
A little over 24 hours.
Right.
And we're going to, of course, watch what happens today. Now, of course, they have more pages, so the number is going to be pretty amazing. And again, our streaming numbers this morning are keeping track with our biggest numbers yesterday. So, folks, the momentum is growing. And again, 4 p.m. Central Time this afternoon, the second replay of Absolute Interference, and then an 8 p.m. showing of Absolute Interference, and then we'll be announcing where you can see it, because I know after that everybody's going to want to know where they can go see this over and over and share it with friends and that kind of thing. But right now, it's really important that you go ahead and maybe throw some hamburgers on the grill, have some folks over, watch it tonight, 8 p.m., but the next showing will be 4 p.m. Central Time and then 8 p.m. Central Time.
And the 4 p.m. Central Time, I just want to tell everyone, if you're trying to tell your friends about this, what the biggest bullet points is, Now we know just 19 of the hacks. I'll call them hacks. Okay, 19 of the attacks and hacks from China, the ones that made it through, the actual flips that they have preserved, the actual flips from Donald Trump to Biden, just those 19 from China switched 5 swing states, all 5: Arizona, Pennsylvania, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Arizona. You know, did I say 5 there? Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So all 5 of those got flipped. You know, if you put all those 5 in, they all flip from Biden to Trump. You know, they'll give. You know, he won. He won those 5, and so it's just very important that you show people that, because that's all. That right there is all we need. Period. In the Supreme Court. Here it is. Here's the cyber guy, and that's just a small portion, a very small portion of this whole attack in our country. Which you heard there was stuff went on in all 50 states. That you heard that, Brandon.
That's right.
And so just 19 of them, okay, you know, flipped this election, that China did this, and Donald Trump's the winner. Mm-hmm. And whether you're a Democrat or Republican shouldn't matter. This is an attack on our country. They used the machines, and we're going to show this afternoon how they used them and what they did, and stuff like that. And this is, I can't say it enough that they, you know, if a court looked at, but the court's never looked at this. All the evidence you've seen out there that says, well, we looked at these, and, you know, when people say, I've seen them in the hearings and stuff, and this wasn't allowed to see. And here we have Eric Metaxas coming in.
Mute it till we get him on, if you would, guys.
Yep.
Before we get him on here real quick, the other guy that was on there, the other guy whose voice was distorted and changed, right. Another whistleblower, that's fascinating too, about those phones and the connection back to China.
And well, that's this evidence of being online and stuff. Of course, you know, all of this is evidence of a massive
cyber warfare
attack.
Cyber warfare.
A massive attack and cyber warfare from which China using these machines. This shows you how the machines they rigged them to go on the internet, even when they didn't have it, to be able to use the cell phones and use that technology. So I think he's still trying to beam in there.
I think there he is.
There he is.
Him. We got him.
Is this looking weird for you?
You're looking great, Eric. You're looking great. We're trying to get a count on how many people have seen this now, but we had Eric, since yesterday, we do have over 1 billion page views. Over 1 billion page views. Yes, we have, and
awesome?
For the media out there, yes, we have proof of it. It comes right from, if you trust the analytics from what were they, Google Analytics?
Oh, yeah, that. And we got several other things that are right on our servers.
But they.
I want to show people how to wear a mask when we're on there. I want to show you the.
We're on now. We are on now.
Are we really?
Yeah, you're live right now.
I'm gonna. So am I on Frankspeech right now?
You are right now.
You are. You're live. About 1 million people. About a million people.
Can I show people the proper way to wear a mask?
Sure.
Okay, this is Eric Metaxas showing the proper way to wear a mask. Here's the mask, right? And you take it like this, and you put it right here.
Handkerchief.
It's just a nice little mission.
Matches your shirt.
That's beautiful.
It dresses you up.
Yep.
That's beautiful.
This will protect you against all kinds of diseases and stuff. So it's just valuable. I say people should wear their masks no matter what when you're jogging. It's just it's appropriate. It's appropriate. It's a sign of respect, you know.
Wow, that's it. Well, Eric, did you get a chance to watch any of that Absolute Interference?
I did, and you know something, I have to tell you, I don't know, I'm a little speechless, because when you see, I don't know the name of the guy, actually you can't give the name of the guy, but the guy who was just on recently talking with his voice distorted, you know,
that's correct. Right.
And saying that all of these green arcs, those are successful, right, from
Yes.
China to I thought, how is it that people who should care about this, people in our government, people in the FBI and the CIA, how at this point can they ignore this stuff? I don't know. You've spelled it out for them. You've made it so clear. Look, Mike, you're not just my friend. You're my hero. What you're doing is so beautiful, and it makes me. It's moving, because think about it. A private citizen, you're not being paid to do this. You're doing this because you love your country, and you have the ability, the means to do this. And my thinking is, first of all, that it's beautiful and moving to me that you are doing this, that a free citizen can do this kind of thing. But what's interesting to me is that we have people in our news media who are simply looking away. They don't want to have to deal with what you're showing. And honestly, I'm being perfectly honest when I say I almost wish they could deal with it in depth and refute it. And then I would say, you know what? Mike did all this work. We all looked into this, and it turns out, praise God, there was not interference in our elections, and that Joe Biden, even though I don't like him and I don't like his policies, I think they're monstrous. Nonetheless, the American people elected him. Even though that's bad news, it's better news than that foreign actors, Marxist, communist, Chinese, and others changed our election and destroyed the will of the American people. That's much worse. And so I kind of think, how is it possible that folks like the New York Times and others could simply sneer at you and simply say, oh, it's the My Pillow guy. Yeah, he was a crackhead. And, that's not an argument, folks. Our country is at stake. Freedom hangs in the balance, and sneering is your response. That's pathetic. So, Mike, it reminds me of something. I'm writing a new book called Is Atheism Dead? And I tell the story of how Galileo, people often present this idea that Galileo fought against the church. It's actually not true. It's much more complicated. It was the Aristotelians and the universities that didn't like what he was saying. But here's what's funny. He had the telescope, and it's exactly like you. He had the telescope, and he invited them to look through the telescope. Come and look through the telescope. Tell me that I'm wrong. Do you see what I see? Do you dare look? They refused to look through the telescope. They knew that if they looked through the telescope, they would have to deal with what they saw through the telescope. So they said, you know how we're going to get around this? We're just going to make fun of Galileo. We're not going to look at the telescope. That's basically what is happening. You're saying, here it is. Am I wrong? Show me where I'm wrong.
Right.
And they're refusing to deal with it because they know that if they engage you and engage the facts, it may be a little bit more complicated than they're prepared for, and it may actually be leading in the direction that they don't like. And so they're simply leaning on being willing to sneer at anybody who disagrees with them. It's despicable. It's fundamentally un-American. And I really think by God's grace, we will win the battle. But it's only by God's grace because we're living in different times.
Eric, that's probably the best example I've ever heard of what we're in right now. Nobody wants to look at it because they're afraid of what really happened, or that it did happen. And, that's why we had a reporter yesterday from one of the lower media things. Your not your mainstream media. They're the only ones that seem to care about this, and they just like to bash it. But he called up and he said, how come you're doing absolute interference when you had absolute proof and it was seen by 150 million people? And I said, because people out there, they didn't want to see it. They tried to suppress it. They tried to take it away. So I thought, well, maybe we need more to show what would actually win in court 100%. That's what I did, Eric. I went out and got someone, not just some third party. I got a guy that actually works. That's what he does for the government. Some of the best cyber experts in the world. Those were his credentials. I'll tell you what, since knowing there's this guy and a couple of the other ones, I don't think there's anybody better. I mean, they've told me what they've done. He can't say on what they've done in the past, the things he's done to protect our country, and where we've had other cyber hacks. And this is real. And when you say, why wouldn't these, the government, these departments in the government that are supposed to protect us see this now and look at it? I would hope they come running. I would hope that the mainstream media, the New York Times, the Washington Post, instead of thinking a way to mock the launch of Frank, which is obviously the launch of Frank, my biggest purpose was to get this out there because of what they did to Absolute Proof last time and what's happening to all of us. And now, by now that, we said right when you were coming on, over 1 billion impressions right now, and that's a big number, and we had, our ticker went over 100 million people, but it only goes up to 100 million. I guess
we're going to fix that for tonight.
Yeah, we're going to fix that for tonight.
This is big stuff. I can't believe. I mean, these numbers are amazing, and but I want to say something, Mike, because this is important. I think I mentioned Galileo, right? People in power. This is normal. People in power want to keep their power. People in power will often use vile means to keep their power. When we look at in history, people always love to talk about the all-powerful church that wanted to crush Galileo. Now, again, some of that is not even true, but the concept is that you have an establishment, they have authority, they have power, and anybody who goes against them, especially if that somebody says something they don't like or doesn't go along with their paradigm, they don't really care if he's right or wrong. It's just unpleasant, and they have the power to crush him. Think of the irony that the people who wanted to crush the scientist Galileo, today, the power establishment is the media, is people with a secular viewpoint. They sneer at conservatives and Christians like you or me, and they have tremendous power. And so when they're given information that they don't like, rather than do the right thing, which is to say, well, you know what? We believe in truth and right and wrong, so let's look into this. By the way, if we're journalists, that's our job. Instead of that, they simply say, we think we have enough power not to do that and to crush dissent. And so we're not going to look through Galileo's telescope. We'll make fun of him. We'll put him in prison. We'll do what we need to do to get our way. Today, those same people are canceling you. They're canceling me. They're canceling anybody who talks about these things because they say, we don't really want to get into the debate. We might lose a debate. We have enough power to crush the debate, to end the debate right now. Think of the irony that the people in power today are doing the very thing that they have criticized powerful people doing through the ages. They have become the ones that say, we like our paradigm. We don't want somebody to mess with it. Certainly not somebody like Mike Lindell. He didn't go to Harvard or Yale. What do we care what he has to say? He's just an American citizen. We don't really care about them. I have to be honest with you. We're in a big battle, and I don't mean to frame it in historical terms to be dramatic. I actually think that is where we are. We, the people, are having to assert ourselves and say, this is right and this is true, and we will never back down because we believe in doing what is right.
Eric, that's why with this new platform, Frankspeech.com, when, launching it yesterday, it was perfect timing for, when they went after the First Amendment rights, that our lawsuit, My Pillow sued Dominion. This is lawfare that they've used against everyone. It started with the machines. Now then it went to the vaccines and the borders and stuff where people can't talk. There's a whole list on Vimeo now of what you can and cannot talk about. And Alan Dershowitz was on yesterday, and he said that I've been retained him to advise my lawyers on that for My Pillow. And My Pillow, it wasn't a countersuit, it was an actual lawsuit. He said it would be the most important case in history, these are his words, for our First Amendment rights of free speech. When you bully and you use, this hasn't been done since 1798, where they use bullying to get the media, the journalists, and people not to talk or not to do their jobs and just don't talk about it. So it's right in line of what you're saying is, rather than talk about it, we have a way to, we might lose talking about it, we might lose exposing ourselves. I've said it, these machine people that use these Dominions and Smartmatics and that, and I've said it before, I've said, if I had stuff in my pillows out there and people were accusing me of it, I would open it up and say, let's see what you got. Here, I'll show you. But they didn't want to do that because, and this even goes to a whole nother level now of, our country, whether you're a Democrat or Republican, this now we have 100% 100%. Anyone out there now that prints, we're going to call them out daily, that says Mike Lindell was on TV again and this evidence was debunked. This was brand new. No one in history has seen that one page that we shown on there that came right out of the spyware. That stuff has over millions of lines behind it. These are what these government cyber experts that they can read with other computers. And these are timestamped from the night of the election. They can't. I asked him off camera and stuff. I said, "Can you go back in time and change these?" And he said right on there. He said, "Of course you can. This has been preserved in time. Unless you have a time machine to go back and redo everything, you can't. These are 100% evidence. When this gets to those 9 Supreme Court justices, and we have these lawyers, they talk of things like a writ quo warranto and stuff to do it. But what we're doing, Eric, is because this is, of the way the media is, and you say go to the people, what we're going to do on Frank here, starting tomorrow, we're going to have a big, it's like a poll, it's going to be called a tracker. It's a guilty tracker. And we're going to keep dumping evidence and more. If you want more, I want people to reach out. We're going to take your thing. Show me more. Show me more. As soon as you're 100% that they're guilty, that China did this, you come in and you sign up on this tracker. One person, one sign up. And because, for me, I want everybody to be 100%. Whether you like it or not, the outcome of what this could end up happening. If I said this morning, if I was reversed, I'm telling you, for the future, just because this time it happened to be the Democrat Party, if it was reversed, and I don't care what anybody says out there, myself, I would want to say, oh, my guy won, but I know this was an attack by the country. What about next time? What about all the Democrats you've seen in the film that were worried that it was going to happen to them? Just because
Actually,
you like...
Mike, I got to tell you, it's because of you that I saw the HBO film Kill Chain.
Right.
Because go watch it. And I thought to myself, this is fascinating. This is an HBO film. There's tons of Democrats in it, and they're talking about the same kind of thing. They're talking about voter fraud and the potential for the nightmare of an American election being stolen. And not just an American election, any election, a governorship, a Senate seat.
Right.
What a nightmare. So HBO has made this documentary. Nobody's talking about it. HBO made it. Amy Klobuchar is in it. Elizabeth Warren was talking about Dominion and these other machines. Suddenly they went silent. And I think to myself, look, folks, it does seem like Russia was involved in the 2016 election. Now, maybe President Trump doesn't like that because it implies he didn't win. I think he did win. But the point is, we should have no doubt that there are foreign entities. They are wicked. The Russians, obviously the Chinese, they don't believe in God, and they really don't care about right or wrong. They want to use their power to do what they can. And we have people in our country participating with them. It's cultural Marxism, effectively. We're saying we don't care about right and wrong. We don't care about the voice of the people. We don't care about individual rights. What we care about is winning. And when our side wins, we'll just shut up. And if their side wins, we'll make a lot of noise. And so in the film Kill Chain, if people say that, well, I don't want to watch Mike Lindell. Okay, watch Kill Chain and tell me what you think. It seems possible that Stacey Abrams has lost the governorship to crooked Brian Kemp. Does it help if one of the Republicans is crooked? If Brian Kemp is a Republican, does that help people understand this is a bipartisan issue? It's an American issue. It is not a Trump issue. People need to understand our whole republic is at stake. It sounds dramatic. I wish we were all crazy. I wish we were totally wrong. And I would love people to look carefully at what the evidence you've presented and help me understand how it's wrong. But if you refuse, like Galileo, to look through the telescope, you are the kind of person that suppresses truth. And all the people, when you study Galileo or you study anybody, you say, oh, I wouldn't have been one of those people. Well, the American media today are being the people who refuse to look through Galileo's telescope because they would rather agree with their friends that, his ideas are heretical and stupid. We don't want to look at the facts. We just want to name call, and we refuse to look through the telescope. That's effectively what's happening with journalists in America today. So we need some
Right.
great journalists daring to look at your stuff and see what they think.
Well, you're exactly right, Eric. And I said before, I said God's got his hand in all this. And a couple of things, you bring up a couple points there that, you know, just because you fell in it, okay, the Democrat Party, maybe you were okay at first that Biden won and that you voted for him. But my friends that are Democrats are going, this is something different here. This is scary stuff. It's not what they, you know, so that's getting revealed of what socialism and communism is. And also, there's a big reveal on this timing. We did find out who a lot of these corrupt politicians, you know, your Brian Kemps and your Brad Rassenbergers and stuff like that. It's out there. And your people, politicians that had not only political agendas, but personal agendas, like Doug Ducey in Arizona. The guy has a personal agenda. It's very obvious, you know, but all of these things going on, you have to fix. But when I go into things and people, the first thing you do is you identify the problem. We have a huge problem. We have a cyber attack of historical proportions. So you look at it and go, okay, how do we you fix the immediate problem. We'll leave that to the Supreme Court, pull it down, do what you got to do. But then you have to start over kind of with a blank slate and say, how do we prevent this from ever happening again? Well, you get rid of all machines worldwide. I just did an interview with Venezuela from them, and they told me, which we're going to show this afternoon, the history of the machine. They took that country in 2 years. I want to ask you something, Eric. This was in there. I don't know if you've seen this part, but just a week ago on Morning Joe, they were interviewing Adam Schiff and what's the other guy?
Chris Krebs.
Chris Krebs.
DHS.
What was he?
He was at the Department of Homeland Security for cybersecurity related to the election.
Right, and he said right after the election, he said this is the most secure election ever. That was his words. Well, they interviewed him and Adam Schiff on Morning Joe, and they asked him. It was in my show here. And they said, what is the biggest threat to our country right now, to the United States? And they said, China attacking us cyberly, a cyber attacks by China to break into stuff. And then he said, right down to the local races. I want everybody to know he's 100% right. He's 100% because local races in our country were affected too. There were so many down tickets that were also affected, everybody. We're not even bringing that up. We got to start here, and then we could get this new foundation that we put in and rewind and look at stuff that happened. But here are these two Democrats, they're saying, and on their committee, they set up a committee, and they're saying what happened. I'm going, well, I thought, Eric, what I thought? I thought they had seen my evidence before I showed it today. I'm going, wow, they get it. They had, I feel like somebody was watching me but you know what? Maybe they did hear this guy works for the government, and maybe the rumor traveled that, 100% we have it, and our own people that have worked for us, the best cyber experts in the world that are validated to check into this and validated, has been validated. So it's
here's another historical parallel, just to throw it in. What you were just saying, right? Imagine the Nazis took over France, and some people said, you know what? We want to work with the Nazis. The Vichy government said, we're going to work with the Nazis, and we'll be top dog. As long as we, dance to the tune of the Nazis, we can be the Vichy government here in France. Now, the true patriots in France hated the Vichy government, okay? Right now in America, we have the Democrats who think that they won this election. They're going along with the Marxist Chinese communists, and they're basically saying that we don't want to buck, that powerful country. We're just going to go along with it, and so we'll get to rule and reign. Well, the fact of the matter is, you are now a Chinese puppet. That is what is happening right now, and every single American needs to understand: if you are working with the Chinese, or for the Chinese, or are simply looking the other way while they do their anti-American things, which is they're trying to destroy this nation and freedom around the world, you are part of the problem. And right now, we obviously have Joe Biden in the White House. I won't call him president because I don't believe that he was elected. Joe Biden is in the White House. He was very, very plausibly shown to be working with the Chinese, getting billions of dollars through his son Hunter. That entire story was thrown to the side by the mainstream media in October. And that's, I'll tell you, Mike, that's when I realized we're in big trouble. When the mainstream media will not cover something that is as directly, it's a rusty knife, held to the throat of our national security, that we have China bribing the Bidens just enough that they'll play ball if they get into the White House. They'll play ball and they'll let the Chinese take over the world, because if they can knock us down, the world belongs to them. That is what we're dealing with right now. There are people that are foolish enough to think that they will, be able to have a little something for themselves. It's like the Vichy government.
Right.
Well, the Nazis are only going to use you for a little while, and then you'll lose what you have. So this is a really historic moment.
Yeah, it really is. And when you talk about using it's kind of like I've said in World War II. Hitler had Japan over here, and Japan comes and makes a mistake of bombing Pearl Harbor. Well, Hitler didn't want that, because he was going to use Japan and then turn on them. He was just using them for the time. I mean, it's very obvious that that attack, as terrible as it was, it probably it changed history, and that's what I say. Right now, Eric, I've said this on camera before here, and I've told everyone, one of the miracles of this whole thing we're in right now is, if everyone would have done their jobs with the Constitution and not changed everything in the states, and then the election would have been pulled down just on, I call it organic cheating, the dead people voting and the non-residents and all this stuff. Because on December 14th, they would have flipped it back and Donald Trump would have won. But then we wouldn't have got to the big problem, the attack by China on our country, and that you can be done through this new cyber warfare, cyber attack. And when you go on TV right now, a week ago, and they say the number one threat to our country is China cyber attacking through our businesses, our IP, our intellectual property. This has been going on. China, they almost got away with it, everybody. We're not going to let them get away with it. No. And to get away with it, what do you do first? You got to get rid of anybody talking about it. You got to get rid of the voice. And this is, now I'm going to bring it full circle to, since I got everyone that tries to debunk this, you can't, because it first came out on January 9th. This is when I got it. I would think any American that's seen what I've seen after they're bringing me this would have done the same thing for their country. That's what I would like to believe, whether you're a Democrat or Republican. I would have done it in reverse. I wouldn't have felt right if someone being there in something as important to humanity as your elections. I'm sorry, but that's...
There have been whistleblowers. There's a young woman named Reality Winner who is in jail right now because she said that the Russians tried to mess with our election in 2016. There are people on both sides that have seen that there are foreign governments, very powerful, wicked people trying to destroy our way of life. I have to say this, Mike, China right now, everybody should know this. Everybody says, if I was alive during Nazi times, I would have been against the Nazis. Well, folks, we're dealing with it right now.
Right.
China is utterly godless. They don't believe in the sanctity of human life. So if you oppose them, they're putting Falun Gong people and Uyghur Muslims and Christians in prison camps. They're torturing them. This is what people do who don't believe in God. But it gets worse. They don't believe in the sanctity of human life. So their attitude is, you know what? There are Saudi businessmen, very wealthy, who need organ transplants. We will murder a healthy young Uyghur Muslim. They are doing this. I just had this on my radio program. They've been doing this for some years. They'll murder a young man or woman for their organs, a Uyghur Muslim, because the Saudis don't want organ transplants from non-Muslims. And the Chinese say, this is great. We can make $500,000 per human being that we murder. Folks, that is what we're dealing with. Right. That is who China is. Right. If we have the Olympics there, if we allow them to gain power and prestige in the world, and that's exactly what the Democratic Party, they have an obligation to the United States of America to stand up to this wickedness and to say, We want to have fair elections, and we want to be a torch of liberty in the world, that people know that there is still a possibility of being a free people. And I just want to say again, Mike, if you weren't doing this, I kind of wonder, where would we be? It's amazing that we get to a point in this country where a private citizen spending his own money is doing something like this. I can't even think of any comparison in history. The idea that America, a free country, is relying on a free, unelected citizen to expose this kind of stuff. It's amazing.
Well,
I'm very
it's
proud.
that's God. I give the glory to God there, because he gave me this platform, and it was written a long time ago. And that's what I say, Eric, right now. I mean, you look at that, even that miracle that even I look at, I was just talking yesterday, I go, what are the odds that here's an ex-crack addict ends up in this position, and that all these people bring me the evidence that you just seen here today from this cyber thing, that it gets to me, on January 9th, and then I wouldn't let up on it. I'm not going to let up on it, because I would feel anyone that had that, anybody that would have seen what I seen, if I didn't do it and I was that only person that could do it, how would I live myself the rest of my life? I mean, knowing that, okay, it's very humbling that God shows, this ex-crack addict, but God, with God all things are possible. But I'm looking at, I would think anybody that cared about our country would do what I'm doing, and not give up on it. And they, it's like, and there's everyone out there. And if you use those, I always use mathematics to know, you've read my book, Eric, to know that God exists. Like, what are the odds? A 1 in a million, a 1 in a billion. And this could never happen. You add them together. When do you think it's a miracle? This is what I look at right now, because I'm so happy and excited that we're in this time, because all of these things wouldn't have happened if it wasn't to kind of reset and be in this greatest revival in history, because people are seeing now. I said, just an example, college students that went to college in our country over the last couple of decades, now they're seeing that they were all for this socialism, and, okay, socialism is having a cup of coffee and talking to your friend and socializing. They realize now, because socialism is an evil thing that manifests to communism, but they have accelerated this so fast and skipped right over it. Communism is here now. The first thing, like they did, now I like when you compare to Nazi Germany, they use marketing. They use marketing, some of the best marketing in history done. When you convince yourself you're better than other people, you convince a population, or you also, you give this narrative, and you can change the narrative because you control the media. We're going to do this. This is bad. This guy's bad. And when you get that, then all you have to be is a great marketer to end up doing this. And I said before,